Yate Susan Hudson Neslet, Kiani Neslet, Destini Shatin, Tabahasha Che, Nakaida Shanali, from Tohotsoi, New Mexico, Sheep Springs, New Mexico. I'm a member of the Great Navajo Nation. What right here, this quilt, I made it and it was shown at the White House when I was receiving my award for the National Endowment of the Arts Heritage Fellow. And this is called the Long Walk of My Ancestors Coming Home. This is part two. When my ancestors went to on the long walk, this was year 3 and year 4 before they were released. And right here, I show how warm. These are where the soldiers would live, but actually they were cribs where the soldiers, they were given free reign of whatever they can do. They were rapists, they were murderers, they sex slaves, slave trade, human, trafficking, everything that you could think of, pimps. And after a couple of years, what happened was all the young women, all the young men, and then, ones that were a little bit older, because of all the stuff they were going through, they were dying from venereal diseases or starvation and diseases. And these soldiers had the right to do whatever they wanted to do to us. And they would stand out there and they made the decision who was going to live and who was going to die. And so a lot of these kids right here were starving, and they knew when a soldier would come out, that soldier would go out there with a can of food and the kids would run over there. But these kids knew that if they took the can of food, they were going to be raped. So I you as a human being, as a mother, as a father, as cousin, auntie, grandma, what would you do if you were in that situation where you were starving and you knew that if you set your son, daughter, cousin, your grandchild over there, knowing that they might be able to get a can of food that you can share, keep you alive, but then knowing that that child was going to be raped, what would you think in your mind? What was the decision you would make in life? And you notice there's trees back here. And I always, whenever I do crosses on a grave, I always put them upside down because of the religious organization that also had devastating effects upon my family, and especially with the boarding school and the way they treated us. And then right here, I was showing the results of the rape. These and where you see the kids with the different color skins, different color hair, that changed our whole clan systems. Because you think about everybody that was there going around, and it was over there in Bosque Redondo, Fort Summer. And when I gave a speech there a couple of years ago, 150 years of the signing of the treaty, I went over there and I was saying that all the people in that area that were descendants from the people that were there in the 1864 to 1868 that were all related. Because I know those men went over there, especially when you can do whatever you want to the women or the men, that the result of were these children. So we were related clan wise, whether they accepted it or not, that was on them. And through the years, I was showing over here the devastation of the starvation part is when they try to plant, the earth there was so bad that corn wouldn't grow. And then that's when the introduction of the canned foods and kind of what that canned foods and everything started the destruction within our health, because our bodies weren't made to eat out of cans, to go out there with nature. And what also happened over here is I'm honoring that young female coyote. What they decided to do was have a ceremony, and they went out there. The young ones went out there and caught a young female coyote, and they all got together and they said this prayer. And in these songs and in these prayers, they had that little coyote, and they said, if this coyote, when we release it, if it goes to the east, we're going to be here for a while. If it goes to the west, we're going to be released, but they don't know when. So that coyote went to the west. They knew they were going to be released, but they didn't know when. So they got excited and things were going to were going to happen. And what happened over here in the last year, Samuel Tappan, him and the other general showed up, and then they started negotiating. And Kitty Weaver is his, I think, 3 times great niece. After he had the second treaty, and he had it at his house over there in Boston. And so her and I got together at the 150th year. We had a long talk. And I'm a descendant from the Long Walk, and she's a descendant from Samuel Tappan. So we got together and we talked. And then when she did decide to donate the treaty, she gave it back to the Navajo Nation. So right here, showing where they're signing the treaty, and we're a matriarch system. And so the women, we're the leaders because we know who's good, who's bad. We just, we want really great leaders. But of course, white society, looked down upon us, and especially as women. They didn't want to give us that, us women, that power. So they turned around and gave the power to the men, which devastated our tribe to this day. When men are ruling, we have a different outlook than the men do. And so they made the decision, which was a really hard decision. And so right here, I always put the flags upside down. So I have right here the leader signing it, and he's stepping on the flag. And right here, I have them. They're going home because they were released. Right here, I put January 1st was the end of the being held in a concentration camp. And I have the little kids going here, and a lot of them are orphans. So I show where the older kids are taking the children home. And one thing, my great-grandmother, when I was little, we were still in a wagon. Yes, I know. We're still in that wagon. And the first thing that went in the wagon was that blue coffee pot. So I honored her with that dreaded coffee pot because it had its own little spot. If it moved, we were in trouble. But it was the first thing off the wagon when we got up to the sheep camp, and then she would make coffee. So I honored her with this little memory, her memory of that dreaded coffee pot. And in the old days, this is how they used to travel. They would have it with the poles, and they would travel and take their stuff home. And I also had another coffee pot right there. And as they were going, the old ones, they were so happy to be released, the ones that survived. And at the end over there, you see where a lot of the women, they hooked up with, and the men too, they hooked up with the soldiers. And if you hooked up with the soldiers stuff, you had a kind of a better life. And so they would go home, and some of these soldiers thought that they were going to go over there and have the mass lands, and they were going to be the leaders and everything. But, you're going from the white world into the Navajo world, and then find out that it was the women that owned everything. And then some of them were so happy. But then what do you do with the young girls that came back with babies? They're ostracized. And then like with my family, when they were taken away, they had sheep and hogans, and as soon as they were taken away, the family came back. So we have a kind of a division in our own family. The ones that were forced on the long walk, and the other ones that didn't go, that hid. So there's a conflict in there. So people that don't understand that. So when they came back, the family that stayed behind didn't want to give up the hogan and the sheep. So then you have to rebuild and restart. And then you think about all that trauma they went through, all the young girls that were going to give babies on this long walk. On the way there, they were killed. Children were killed. Old people were killed. The soldiers, to make easy money, would make agreements with the slavers from the Catholic Church that had permission to go and slaves. And so you're, as a person walking, you've seen people getting killed, you're starving, you go all the way over there, and then when you get over to where you're at, there's no place to live, so you dig a hole in the ground, the frozen ground, and put a blanket over there, and then you're wondering, are you going to be alive the next day? And then you go all the way, all these kids now are going all the way back, and unsure, and then you put them in a boarding school. And then all this stuff happens. And so then you wonder why we have so many problems. A lot of it happened because of here. Because the change of the clan system, the change of the power, and then people's decisions and not talking to us, and the whites thinking they were better than us. So this was in the White House too, and this is the second quilt. Part one is won Best of Show at the Archery Museum in California, and they purchased it. So this is the second one. So hopefully both of them the twins will go back together. So thank you.